everyone, this is Pranay Saraf, Assistant Professor, Computer Science and Computer Science Engineering Department, GH Raisoni College of Engineering, Nagpur. Today we are going to discuss the introduction about wireless sensor network. As everyone knows, the network is exactly a thing which will start us for the communication, right? So since the era is transferring to the wireless one, so the network's efficiency and the wireless sensor network is being a research area recently. Now we'll talking about what exactly a sensor is. So sensor is specifically a device which connects some information from physical or environmental parameters, and that collected information will get transferred to some wireless channels to a specific nodes. Now when you're talking about a wireless sensor network, it is a collection of a sensor device or sensor nodes which specifically collects the information from environmental or physical sensors like pressure, temperature or area monitoring, right? Now when you're talking about a wireless sensor network, it specifically has a specific architecture which it follows. As we all know, when it comes to a network, the specific model to be followed is OSI architecture model. So in OSI architecture model, since it consists of 7 layers, the wireless sensor network architecture specifically takes 5 layers from it. Those specific layers are as a physical layer, which specifically deals with whatever the data is captured by the sensors, which is to be physically deployed in the field. So this physical layer specifically works with a sensor which is actually deployed to gather some information. That information will get gathered by the sensor, which is either a physical information or the environmental information which is present at that specified area where the sensor is actually getting deployed. So next layer is a data link layer, which specifically transfers the data which is captured by the physical layer. That specific data will get taken by the data link layer, which is to be used for the further layers which is above the data link layers. So data link layer specifically captures actual data which is taken by a physical layer to the data link layer. Now the data link layer, after the data link layer, there is another layer called as a network layer. So that network layer maintains the connectivity between a data link to the transport layer. This is where actually roles comes to the transmission of data from one place to the another place. So as a data link layer and a transport layer is interconnected through a network layer. So network layer specifically collects the data from the data link layer and will transfer that data using specific transmitter to some application part of it. So specifically network layer collects the information which is from the physical to data link. That collected information will get transferred to the transport layer. Now transport layer's role is to collect whatever the collected information by that specific node. That specific node's information has to be used somewhere in the application part. So that application part will definitely get used for some applications of a wireless sensor network. Since there are a number of applications we people are using nowadays for a wireless sensor network, so that applications will get definitely used for some further use or for further research areas. Now specifically when we are following a wireless sensor network architecture, it is called as cross layer architecture. So the main advantage of cross layer architecture is that it will help you to improve the efficiency of the system. Since we are talking about from traditionally we are following the ISO OSI architecture, which specifically uses a 7-layer architecture. Now that 7-layer architecture, which is a structured one, now we are transferring that same structured architecture to a cross layer architecture to have more and more focused on the application parts. So when you're talking about the application parts with the cross layer architectures in wireless sensor network architecture, which specifically includes a power management, mobility management and task management. So let's consider a simple example. If we're considering a cellular network, which is a wireless one, when we're using our cell phones, so how this cross layer architecture works with it. Let's consider you're moving from one state to another state. Now when you're using your cell phone, certainly at one instant, if you're traveling from Maharashtra to the Madhya Pradesh, so whenever you're entering from the Maharashtra to Madhya Pradesh, at the same instance, you will be getting a single message on your cell phone that welcome to Madhya Pradesh, right? This is where the actually roles of this wireless sensor network with this cross-layer architectures comes into the picture. So when you're talking about a power management, definitely when you're traveling, though you're using your cell phone applications or not, definitely the power of your cell phone, which is we can call it as a battery, so that battery will get utilized. So the battery will get utilized, which will consume the power, and we people are saying that yes, my battery is getting decreased. So rather than that, so this is a technique, in technical term, this is what exactly the power management comes to in picture. Comes to the next part as in cross layer, that is mobility management. As we had already discussed that certainly when you're traveling from Maharashtra to Madhya Pradesh, when you're entering to the Madhya Pradesh, you will getting a single message which tells you that you had connected from home location register to the visiting location register. When you are registered with any base station which is in Maharashtra, that is called as an home location register. So that home location register, what you people are connected with, that is called as home location register. So your all information is with that only home location registers with. Now when you are moving from one state to another state, definitely you are just a visitor over there, so that could not be a continuous information will be useful for the MP base station or Madhya Pradesh base stations, we can call Madhya Pradesh base stations, to give you a service. So that's why they'll assign some visiting location register assign ID to you, which will be some temporary ID which will be used for some instance or some specific duration when you will be in that specific area. So this mobility management again comes to a picture in that level. The third cross-layer architecture part is task management level. So whatever the task provided by that specific service provider to you in specific your home location register area, that same task or same applications that must be used, or some additional or some similar kind of application must be used for the same in task management. So whatever the applications or what are the services provided by the specific service provider, that must be useful for you in that specific visiting location registers also. Now this is specifically a cross-layer architecture which is using these 5 layers as in physical, data link, network, transport and application layer, which is to be merged with 3 cross-layer management layers, which is power management, mobility management and task management level. So these kinds of cross-layer architecture is now growing nowadays, since the architecture of wireless sensor network is being most recently a good area to research or to work on, as we are the number of mobile users are getting increased nowadays. So this cross-layer architecture requires some improvement from great researchers. Now when you're talking about the topologies in wireless sensor network, it specifically follows 3 specific kind of topologies we people are using. So the first one is star topology, the second one is tree topology, and third one is mesh topology. When you're talking about a star topology, it follows two specific things to be used. One is a gateway, another one is the end node. So in a star topology, there is always a direct connectivity with a gateway to the end users. So this is one kind of good advantage of it also, that it will always get a service from the gateway. So it also comes as a disadvantage also if the connectivity getting loses. So definitely at the same time your network will get dropped. The second kind of topology is a tree topology, which is we can call it as a cascaded star topology. So when we are talking about a star topology, it consists of only a gateway and the end users. Now since a direct connectivity is not possible always from the gateway to the end users, there are some routers deployed in between a gateway and the end users in the tree topology. So that tree topology will uses a same kind of structure which is used by the star topology in between the star in between the gateway and the end users, there are some routers which has some specific applications. Depending on that application, it will transfer the data or the information to the end users. Now, the third type of topology is a mesh topology, which is a combination of a star and tree topology, which is a complex structure where every end user is connected with specific routers with it. So when you're traveling to a one layer down, so definitely you need to have a better connectivity with the proper gateway, which is assigned with the proper router with it. So definitely when you're talking about the topologies, specifically three kinds of topologies are there, which we had already discussed. The first one is star topology, which is using some hierarchical way. Another one is a tree topology, which is called as a cascaded star topology. Another one is mesh, where a combination of star as well as the tree topology comes into the picture with the proper gateways for services for the next layer end users we can call. Now we're going to discuss what exactly various types of wireless sensor networks are available. Now when you're talking about various types of wireless sensor networks are available, it comes to definitely 5 types are there. One is a terrestrial wireless sensor network, another one is underground wireless sensor network, third one is underwater wireless sensor network, fourth one is multimedia wireless sensor network, and fifth one is mobile wireless sensor network. Now when we're talking about we'll discuss on the 5 this specific types. The first one is terrestrial wireless sensor network. This is exactly a network where sensors are deployed on the field. So let's consider a simple example. When you're talking about a terrestrial wireless sensor networks, let's consider a battlefield where the terrorist attacks are possible. So in the specific applications of this terrestrial wireless sensor networks, sensors nodes are specifically deployed in some areas to detect where the applications are to be used. So terrestrial wireless networks is somewhat a cheaply available wireless network, which many of the times getting used nowadays. Now let's consider to the next type of wireless sensor network, which is underground wireless sensor network. Now underground wireless sensor network has some advantages which is to be overcome above the terrestrial wireless sensor network. Now when we are talking about the underground wireless sensor network, it is somewhat more costly than the terrestrial wireless sensor network. The main underground wireless sensor network, if you're considering a battlefield terrestrial wireless sensor network with the underground wireless sensor networks, so underground wireless sensor network specifically when you're keeping some sensor nodes below the grounds, so definitely you required some proper information to be get from that underground sensors. So that underground sensors will transfer some information to on-field sync nodes. So that sync nodes will collect that information, will that again transfer to your routers, where you people are actually collecting the information from various nodes, which is deployed either a terrestrial one or the underground one. The third type of wireless sensor network type is underground wireless sensor network. The third type of wireless sensor network is underwater wireless sensor network. The underwater wireless sensor network is again a main emerging area, like since we people are mainly follows to use various information which is below the sea level or in the sea. So that kind of applications are used this type of network, which is called as underwater wireless sensor network. But the drawback with the underwater wireless sensor network is a sensor proper information and a propagation delay. So when we're talking about these two factors, so wireless sensor networks, when you're talking about the underwater part one, so underwater part one wireless sensor network is somewhat costly, and somewhat when you're talking about the types of information or the accuracy of information in that part, the underwater wireless sensor network is somewhat not been mainly used or mainly applicably are not being till now it not being till now it not being so much advanced that it is giving you a proper information which is available in underwater. Now let's consider the next two types of remaining two types of wireless sensor networks. Those are multimedia wireless sensor network, which is growing at a very huge rate nowadays, since we are having information of a multimedia wireless sensor network in the various forms of an multimedia, which is called as an image processing area or video processing area, which is specifically we people are find it in IBM Smart City Plan, which is an image process which is uses an image processing to have an traffic monitoring, or to have a better flow in traffic monitoring or traffic areas we people are focusing on specifically. Now the multimedia wireless sensor network is very advanced and very emerging area which many of the young researchers are focusing on. Now the last one is a mobile wireless sensor network, which we people are already going on discussing on it, and which is again a architectural reference, which is again a good area or a good research area which many of the young researchers are focusing on. Since we are talking about a since we are talking about a mobile wireless sensor networks, it has a major advantages over a static wireless sensor network. Since a static wireless sensor network is a specific sensor network which is deployed somewhere in the field, so that collects the information only available in the nearby area, which is specifically in that specific area for monitoring some specific environmental or physical parameters only. Now when you are talking about mobile wireless sensor networks, it has a property that it is a movable. So rather than a static wireless sensor network, if the same property or the similar kind of property is carried out with a property which is a movable one, so definitely it will be always a better one to be used a mobile wireless sensor network, since it has a flexibility or a property we can call, which is a mobile one, which is having a efficient one. Another one, when we are talking about it requires a less power rather than a static wireless sensor network. So these, coming to this specific three things, when you are talking about it, if we relate the same thing with a 3 cross-layer architecture, that is power management, mobility management and task management, which is totally, we can simply see these 3 specific cross-layer architecture is specifically means for this type of application, which is with this type of wireless sensor network, which is it meant for, that is mobile wireless sensor network. Now the main part of wireless sensor networks is its applications. So many of we people are using n number of applications in day-to-day life about the wireless sensor networks. Now these, when we're discussing on this specifically applications of wireless sensor network is specifically divided into 4 specific categories which we people are generally using. The first one is area monitoring. Now when you're talking about the area monitoring as an application of a wireless sensor network, it specifically comes with your environmental monitoring, which is another part. So let's consider area monitoring as a separate rather than the environmental monitoring. If we're talking about the area monitoring only, so area monitoring consists of, if we're considering a terrestrial wireless sensor networks. So if we're considering area monitoring as an application or a type of a terrestrial wireless sensor network, so we people can focus on earth monitoring, can focus on some agricultural applications of an area monitoring. So these kind of area monitoring applications can be possible with application areas as a first type as an area monitoring. Next kind of monitoring is healthcare monitoring. Now we people are having n number of medical applications which is available wirelessly, since we doesn't need to go every time to any specific doctor for the prescriptions. Like when at the initial stages there are n number of applications. Like let's consider a simple thing about a diabetic. Suppose we want to test our sugar, so we need to go to doctor and check for it. Now there are n number of applications which is medically healthcare monitoring applications are available nowadays, which is easy for the use. That is one more advantage of an wireless sensor network, which gives you some information which is accurate, which is somewhat cheaply available for the specific user to be used, rather than going to a doctor for every time for the prescriptions and for checking some small things about you. Now the main application area of wireless sensor network is environmental monitoring. So environmental monitoring, when we are talking about it, it comes with an n number of applications which we people are using nowadays. The first application is air pollution monitoring. So air pollution monitoring, we people are seeing at many places. There are some digital hoardings are available in many squares in your city. So that consists of some information like CO percentage, O2 percent, and NH3 percentage, like humidity. This kind of different applications of an wireless sensor network, which we can call it as an air pollution monitoring with an environmental monitoring type of an wireless sensor, environmental monitoring type applications of wireless sensor network, which has a specific air pollution monitoring. So air pollution monitoring, all the applications we can integrate under with environmental monitoring. Now the next kind of environmental monitoring application includes a fire forest. Now at the initial stages, when at the early ages, many forests are burned with a fire. Now using various environmental sensor applications, nowadays we people can use various sensors to be deployed in a forest to detect the fire. So these kind of applications can help to preserve our natural resources. So another kind of application for an environmental monitoring type is landslide detection. So landslide detection, when you are talking about a landslide detection, many places require this kind of application to be used, because many regions, some hilly regions require this kind of application, because it specifically comes with some specific applications which detects what exactly a time required for it to come the landslide. Now another one kind of application is water quality monitoring application, which is again comes with an environmental monitoring applications. Then when you're talking about an industrial monitoring application, it specifically includes some machine health monitoring. So machine health can be detected over here. Now data center, data logging, wastewater management, some structure health. If you want to detect the life of your infrastructure or life of your building, so that could be a good thing to be used as an industrial monitoring. Many of the places are using, and recently we people are using many smart grid applications, which could be an outcome of an industrial monitoring application. So this is our first class, so where we discussed various areas of an wireless sensor networks and applications of it. So in next class we'll discuss the further topics with it. Thank you.